And now for the moment that you have all been waiting for. It's time to take the Taycan on the Autobahn, and we'll see if we can get it up to its maximum speed, or if we just chicken out and decide that things are getting too squirrely. Hopefully the Autobahn is quiet. We're just going to go ahead and accelerate as quickly as possible here. We are in the speed unlimited section of the Autobahn, as you can see on the instrument cluster, but rather unfortunately we've got a truck in the left lane, as you do find very frequently on the Autobahn, so we'll have to slow down here and see what happens. A lot of folks don't realize this in America, but the Autobahn is not entirely speed unlimited, and there is a recommended speed. It's theoretically recommended to be under 130 kilometers an hour, but obviously in the speed unlimited sections, technically, as long as you're not doing anything else wrong, you can go as fast as you would like. Now, as fast as you would like is a tricky concept in a way, because it is expensive to go quickly, whether we're talking about a Taycan like this or a gasoline powered vehicle that can go 150 or 160 miles an hour. Not only do you have to be able to pay for the vehicle, you have to be able to pay to fuel the vehicle, and going 150, 160 miles an hour has a serious impact on your fuel economy. Definitely seems to be a little bit of a traffic jam up ahead here. Hopefully we'll be able to go this fast while we still have enough battery capacity left to do it. We're going to be nearing a quick charge station here very soon, so we may have to repeat this run after we give this a DC fast charge. Just depends on exactly how things go there. Unfortunately, the Autobahn is something that a lot of Americans don't get to experience. I think that's really a shame, because I think it would help Americans be better drivers. On the Autobahn, one thing that you will definitely notice is that there's an incredible amount of lane discipline. Nobody is passing on the right. You can see that there's a long queue of cars here to pass these trucks. Nobody's trying to cut around on the right. People don't pass on the right, and when you're coming up on someone really fast, they generally dive out of the way. The waves really part here, and that is a really nice thing about the Autobahn. So even though this is a long line of traffic, it's not going to be like sitting on I-10 or I-5 or something like that in the US. Once we've passed all this traffic, it really should start to free up here, and I think we see that in the distance here soon. There's a yellow truck up there, and we're going to be out of their zone here soon. The van's probably going to pull over. Yep, van has pulled over. This is when you have to indicate to people that you want to zip along, so you kind of tend to move up a little closer on them. So this Volkswagen is accelerating. We're now at 153 kilometers an hour. And the acceleration up here at 170 kilometers an hour is still incredible. You can really feel the vehicle pulling ahead here. So again, we can see the traffic just sort of clearing for us. The waters have parted, and we'll see 189, we're at 90, 200. Now is definitely, and did we just enter we just entered a speed restricted zone, so now we have to slow down, sadly. The other thing that a lot of folks don't realize in America is that not all of the Autobahn is an unrestricted zone. We're in one of them here, but there are large portions of the Autobahn that are still speed restricted. So now we're up over 200 kilometers an hour. We're coming on into the top speed of the vehicle, 224. 230. Let's hope that the battery holds out. 240. Things are going to get sketchy up here by the bus. And we're still, the foot is flat on the floor, 244. We may be in the speed restricted area of the battery capacity here now that we're down at 8%. It actually felt pretty stable though. I have been in a vehicle at 155, 160 miles an hour on the Autobahn, several of them. I used to own a V7R, did overseas delivery on that vehicle and spent a lot of time on the Autobahn. It was definitely squirrely at 155 miles an hour in even the barest of breezes out there. And this is, as you would expect in a Porsche, very stable, very planted. It definitely feels different when you're in the normal mode versus Sport Plus. Sport Plus definitely firms things up, so it's definitely a better feel there. And now we have another unrestricted zone here. We'll see how it goes. We're just passing a sporty Audi. But yeah, now it says charge battery immediately. Our fabulous co-pilot here, Tom from Inside EVs, is going to check and see if we can reach the charging station now. We'll push that little button on the nav. And what is our distance to the charging station? Oh, well, it says we're going to get there at 7%, so I'm not too worried. The Autobahn is definitely good for range anxiety. This is incredibly quick, but it's really sucking down the power to be going at these kinds of speeds on the Autobahn. But this is again where the Taycan really comes into its element. This is the vehicle that was designed for this kind of high-speed travel. And now it's time to DC fast charge the car, so we're going to go ahead and pull off here so we can get to that station and suck up some electrons. When we were charging a little bit earlier, we were charging a station that wasn't able to supply the full amount of power to that particular car. So today we're trying it again at a station right off the Autobahn, and as you can see, it is definitely right up there, just at about 260 kilowatts right there, 259, we're just about hitting it. That means that we can confirm that this Porsche Taycan right here is the fastest charging EV currently available in America, by a little bit of a margin, of course, because the new Tesla V3 superchargers are able to charge at almost this rate, but they still can't quite match the Porsche. Is more impressive than the peak charging rate is the fact that at 98%, we're still consuming 25 kilowatts. That means this battery is still charging pretty quickly right at the top. And for most EVs out there, whether we're talking about luxury EVs or mainstream EVs, charging really tapers off above about 80%. And for many EVs out there, you might as well just plug into an AC outlet and level 2 charge, because that's going to be as fast as you can go. But as you can see here, 98%, still pulling down about 20 kilowatts. This is still twice as fast as the Taycan can charge on a level 2 AC charging connector. So we've now charged the battery. It took us about an hour because initially Porsche said just charge to 80%. 80% can happen in about 23 minutes, but we said 9. We are going to charge to 100%, and that is exactly what we did. And that last 20% took the extra half hour. But I think it was worth it because we got to see exactly how fast this battery can charge. And if you want to know more about that, there's going to be a separate video just on the DC fast charging in the Taycan. I'll give you a little bit of a hint right now. Charging is really quick, all the way up to 100%. This vehicle was still consuming about 20 kilowatt hours at 99% battery state of charge. That is very, very impressive. Of course, not as impressive as the acceleration abilities of the Taycan, which are absolutely insane. So we're gonna give those a whirl here, and I have my co-pilot Tom telling me exactly how fast we're going. You can maybe pull that up on your passenger cockpit, and we can see what that looks like. 220 kilometers an hour. Oh, 250. So we are now at the top speed of the Taycan, 266.707, wow, kilometers an hour. It is very, very, very fast, and you come upon traffic very quickly. Fortunately, the brakes are excellent. Again, the Turbo S gets the carbon ceramic brakes. And since we're on the Autobahn, we have excellent lane discipline, and the water is just part for you. So we will give this another whirl. This feels incredibly stable, and we weren't even in the Sport Plus mode, which we are now in, firms things up a little bit. This feels pretty good for 265. We have some slowing traffic up there, so we're just gonna go ahead and slow down, and hey, that's what the Taycan is like on the Autobahn. This is exactly what the Taycan is designed for. Very, very impressive machine. I didn't have time to giggle like a schoolgirl because I was hanging on for dear life. Good thing that the camera is not pointed at the steering wheel. You might have seen my white knuckles there for just a while. This has an incredible number of LCD screens in this cabin, and in this video, we're going to talk about what each and every one of them does. If you want to know more about how the Taycan drives or what the rest of the car looks like, be sure and check those videos out as well. And you can also head over to alexonautos.com or youtube.com/alexonautos and see some of my other videos. I'm out here for TFL Car today, however, so be sure and subscribe if you haven't already done that to their channel down there. And a big thank you to Roman for sending me out on this trip so I could cover the Taycan for TFL Car. Let's start our look over here on the passenger side. We're going to talk about the air vent first because the air vent is electronically controlled, but you won't find those controls right here in this LCD. The LCD on the passenger side is perhaps the easiest to explain because we don't have as many functions as the central LCD. So you can see we get navigation, turn-by-turn directions here. You can enter destinations right there in this map. And we do have the availability of satellite imagery. So we can choose, for instance, satellite imagery. You can choose a 3D map if you want to have that particular view. The mapping interface is identical to the mapping interface in the central LCD, and you can even have them display the exact same thing at a time. We also have the availability of the cockpit display. This gives you a breakdown of what we see on the driver's side. But it's worth noting that these areas are not configurable, so it's not like we can swipe around and choose different options right there. Back to the home screen again, we have a media option here. This is where we can select the inputs for the system. So you can see right now Apple CarPlay is the media device being played right now, but we don't have a CarPlay display screen. I think that's a little bit of a pity. So CarPlay only operates in the central display. We do, however, have the option of adjusting the Burmester audio system in that screen. This screen can also be used to manage the devices. You can see what's paired there, what's connected, etc. And then over here in settings, we have access to some of the settings that relate only to this particular screen. So just the passenger display and the Burmester audio system. You can't control the rest of the car features there. And then we have a calendar option. That's basically it for this screen. Now, while you're driving, the system does want a passenger to be in the passenger seat in order to use this particular screen. Moving inboard from there, we have the heart and soul of the system, the central LCD. You'll notice that the overall functionality is similar to the other LCD, but it's not quite the same. So if I take a look at, for instance, this menu right here and then pan out over to that other screen, you notice that we don't have the same sort of options on both of these screens. I do think that that is a little bit of a pity. So on the right side here, for instance, we get the CarPlay, we get the settings screen, we get the service, the updates, AC controls, etc. All that's over here. Now, why did I talk about that air vent first? Well, because if we go over here to the AC screen, this is how we direct air around for these climate control vents. But you'll notice I cannot do that over there on the passenger side. So if the passenger wants to adjust their air vent, they do have to use this screen over here, and this screen could have been used for navigation or something else that the driver was interested in at the moment. Although this is a pretty nifty looking feature, I have to say that overall, I don't find this quite as convenient as just regular old air vents. This is also where we'd adjust things like air quality settings, the ionization, the auto recirculation, etc. Cabin preheating or pre-cooling. You can also adjust whether you want the cabin to be entirely heated or cooled, or whether you just want certain zones to be active, for instance, just the driver and the rear left passenger. And then over here, we can adjust the two rear climate control zones, which are currently off, but we can sync them with the driver. The rear passengers also have similar options for strong, medium, and soft for their airflow, and they can also adjust their air vents via an LCD that's in the back. We have basically the same navigation interface that you saw on the other side, also available with satellite imagery. The new Porsche navigation software also includes their charging planner. So you can see I've entered this destination that's 214 kilometers away, and it thinks that we need a DC fast charge, so I can click that for a little bit more information. We'll arrive at that station with 27% state of charge. Then we'll have 20 minutes of charging, and it tells us the arrival time for our final destination, and then we'll get to our final destination with 36% battery charge. This display is also where we find vehicle settings, so we can adjust all the various drive mode settings right here. So for instance, we can choose the default drive modes: individual, range, normal, sport, sport plus. We can also adjust the ride height. We can give it a lift if we want to clear some objects out there on the roads, like steep driveways, things like that. And we can adjust the way that the regen works in this vehicle. We can have it off, so you can coast, regen on, and then auto. Now, unlike Tesla's, this vehicle has a blended braking system. So regardless of what you do here, when you use the brake pedal, it's going to use the regen to put power back into the battery. This just changes the way that the pedal lift-off regeneration works. So when you lift your foot off the pedal, are you going to coast? Is there going to be some regeneration? Or is the system going to adaptively adjust the regeneration based on the traffic in front of you? This is also where we turn off the fake motor noise inside the cabin. The Assistance tab is where we adjust the vehicle's semi-autonomous systems. We have a trip computer readout there. And then the comfort option is where we find things like driver seat adjustments here, whether you want the massage program. You can turn that off. We'll choose stretch right there, for instance. We can also choose the massage strength, so maximum for this particular seat, heating balance, ventilation balance, etc. In addition, ambient lighting can be adjusted via that tab as well. We have some different color presets here, but not quite as many colors available as we see in some vehicles out there. And lastly, at the bottom, we have a notifications option. There are no vehicle notifications, so that is blank at the moment. Below that screen, we have a screen focused mainly on climate control, so you can see the two zones are synced. If I hit the unsync button, then you notice the other zone pops out there right from the side. If I hit the menu button right at the top, then it activates the climate control menu in the upper screen, rather than just bringing those climate control functions down here to this screen. This is also where we would adjust things like the defogger, defroster, seat heating, and seat ventilation. And if I click that little button at the bottom, it expands some quick cut shortcuts for the upper screen. So to take us back to the navigation on the upper screen, media, phone, settings, and then of course Apple CarPlay right there. This small area at the bottom of the climate control screen is a touch display area for this upper screen right here. So zooming out there a little bit, you use your finger on that display to work around the options right there on the top. It also supports finger writing recognition, so if you want to search, you can start writing letters in that little area right there. This is where we would find the control for the trunk to open and close it, and to open and close the 2 charge doors. We have an AC charge only door on the driver's side, and an AC/DC charge over there on the passenger side. Down here we have a charge option. This gives you the current state of charge, but for some reason this option is not available while you're in motion. At the bottom of the LCD we have a button to turn on and off the infotainment system, volume up and down, and this button right here which activates the camera and parking sensors. You'll find that display back up here in the main infotainment screen. We get our pretty typical 360-degree view, forward and backward view cameras, but we also get some digitally augmented views, which are pretty darn cool. So we can see a view from the side of the vehicle, from a sort of 3/4 angle right there. We can also see a view from the back of the vehicle as if you had a chase vehicle behind you, or from the rear 3/4 views right like that. You can see that the image over here that has been stitched together isn't exactly perfect. I have to say this is really, really well done, and definitely better put together than the similar digital augmented views that we find in some of the GMC pickup trucks out there. But those pickup trucks don't have the same variety of views that we see in this particular system. On the driver's side, we have one of the biggest LCD instrument clusters you can get. The LCD spans all the way from this corner right there, where my left finger is, all the way over to the right side right there, just barely on the screen. It's not rectangular, it has kind of an eccentric shape to it, and it's also curved away from the driver. On each side of the display, we have some touch controls. So if I go over here to the left, we find the touch controls for the headlamps. And then if I go all the way over there to the right, this is where we find touch controls for the traction and stability control, the suspension mode, and you'll see the display right down there on that side. And then the buttons for the vehicle's air suspension, raising and lowering it, favorite button right down there that takes you over to the favorites in the central display. The bulk of the display's operations go on right here in the middle. You can see that we have a night vision camera. It's seeing a person walking right there in front of the vehicle. We can also choose a number of other displays here. So if I go on over to this, you'll see that we get a reduced view where I can get a very minimalist appearance, perhaps for night driving, something like that. An extended map view where we have this very large widescreen map. Again, Google satellite imagery available on that display. We can also elect for a slightly smaller map display where we get 2 gauge dials on each side that can be configured, or you can choose a power meter right there in the center. Recuperation is what they're calling their regen braking right over here on the left, and then power over there on the right. Again, this does have a blended braking system, so the more pedal you use, the more regen you get. It's not like the Teslas where we get fixed ratios for that regen braking. We can't get the same displays on each of these dials. So if we move over here to the right display, we get information, what we saw there before. So battery temperature, the voltage of the 12-volt battery system. I don't find that too useful. And then the status of the high voltage battery. We can also get our media readouts, including track information and album art from Apple CarPlay. We have a drive mode option here. It tells us what drive mode we're in. Don't find that too useful, because if I do change the drive mode, if we're say in the Sport Chrono mode, then that display will pull up right there on the screen. There's a trip computer readout, and of course, navigation turn-by-turn directions as well. Moving all the way over to the right side of the display, this is configurable as well. We can get an analog speedometer right there, along with the status of the active safety systems in the middle. Traffic sign information, basically just a bigger traffic sign with, again, a more traditional speedometer. G-force over there, no traditional speedometer over here on this side when we're in that mode. All-wheel drive power split, front and rear. This display also shows you where the power would go if you wanted to apply power now. So if I put it in drive, you can see that it's going to bias the power to the rear, but the front is also available. There's also a PDCC gauge and tire information as well. For our last display, I've hopped into the back seat. We have a climate menu that is separate for the rear seat, so you can direct the air around. That's the air coming out of these 2 vents up top right there. These are, again, digitally controlled, and you can choose whether you want the air to be strong, medium, or soft, and where you want the air to come out, your feet or your head. You can adjust the fan settings individually on each side, so auto right there, or you can manually adjust the fan up and down, but you can't change the AC mode. So you can see right there, it is in eco mode. That was dictated by the driver up front. There's some additional controls back here. So display settings, for instance, we choose display brightness, switching off the display, whether you want the touch tones to be quiet or not on there. And you can choose heating balance between seat surface and backrest, much like we can up front. Sadly, however, this display will never give you infotainment readouts. I think that's a missed opportunity. I really wish Porsche had given us that kind of feature set back here. Bottom line with all these screens in the Taycan, they definitely take a bit of getting used to. There are so many different layers, so many different functions going on with all of these screens that it is going to take a shopper or the average buyer out there just a little bit to get used to these systems. Now, there are areas where I think this could be improved. I think that the two screens in the dashboard especially could use just a little bit more time in the oven, because the one over there on the passenger side doesn't do the exact same things that the identical screen next to it does, and I think that's a little bit of a pity. I would have liked to have seen Apple CarPlay available on both of those screens. It would even have been cool if CarPlay was available in that screen right behind the front seats as well. I also think it would have been a little bit easier if the controls for the air vents, since the air vents are electronically controlled, were in this climate control screen in the center console and not in the screen above it. But if you're looking for the in-vehicle entertainment system that has the absolute biggest wow factor on the market right now, that's definitely going to be this car, because we get more screen real estate than in anything else currently on sale in America, even though we don't have one enormous screen. Thanks for checking out this video. Again, if you haven't seen the rest of our Taycan videos, be sure and check those out. Hit that subscribe button down there if you haven't already done so. And of course, be sure to head over to tflcar.com for news and our current reviews. I'll see you later.